You cannot have happiness in your life without being grateful for what it is you're happy. The peace, the love, the joy, the happiness, it all is derived from the place of gratitude. Hey, what's up? This is Brad with Be Real. Hey, I wanted to talk a little something different. And man, I'm telling you, it's been, I kind of got the idea a week or 2 weeks ago. And then, like, things time after time have kind of reminded me and helped me. So it was kind of like an accumulation of kind of messages I've gotten over the past week or so. And it pertains to anything from, I wouldn't even say success, but success, winning, being satisfied with your life. And there are certain characteristics and attributes that will help you to be successful. And like I said, I'm not just talking about making money. I'm not just talking about selling more. Who doesn't want to be a more successful parent? Who doesn't want to be a more successful friend? So it's all those things kind of accumulated in one. And if you want to do more research on it, a lady, Angela Duckworth, did a big study on it. She wrote a book on it. And here's what we're going to talk about today. And it is grit. And it is, I'll read you the definition. Grit is an unwavering perseverance and passion for a long-term goal. Unwavering perseverance and passion to achieve a long-term goal. See, you can watch a YouTube video and get pumped up and go have a good workout. I'm talking about long-term goals. I'm talking about, like I said, parenting. I'm talking about a career. I'm talking about making money, saving money. I'm talking about, all of those long-term goals. What a long-term goal is. Grit is the thing that will help you to get to the other side. And here's the great thing, and I'm going to keep bringing this up over and over. The great thing about grit is it has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has nothing to do with who your parents were. It has nothing to do with your talents. We were all born with certain talents. But I've seen a lot of people with amazing talents that kind of let it go to waste because they didn't apply themselves. And so grit is something that anybody can have, anybody can get, anybody can use, but it has to be a conscious effort. And with it, though, all things are achievable. So the couple of things that kind of roll into grit is effort. Let me tell you something. If you want to have an advantage in kind of the world, or an advantage as a parent, or an advantage, whatever situation you're in, just think about this. Put effort. And I know it sounds super easy, but if you kind of walk around the world, there's not too many people putting like immense effort into anything. Enthusiasm. Be excited about it. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing today, that's a blessing. That's the deal you're supposed to be doing. Be enthusiastic and grateful for it. Execute. Here's what the word execute means. You got to get up and go do it. You got to get up. You got to set your alarm clock. There's another word I'm going to use, but I'm not going to use it to the end. But you got to execute. And then intensity. And see, intensity a lot of times is used in kind of a bad context, but intensity can also be a great thing. Intensity can be being intense towards being a great parent, be intense toward being an amazing husband or wife. So intensity can be, it's not a negative thing. So, you have to have effort, you have to have execution, you have to have enthusiasm, and you know what? You have to have intensity. But see, that all starts rolling into grit. Let me give you an example. And this was kind of staggering. This is another one of those messages I got throughout the week. Really, seriously, like, let's think of how many marathons are run across the world. Every town's got a marathon. Every city's got a marathon. There's marathons for the, Olympic. Everybody got marathons, right? So think of how many, there's hundreds of thousands of people running one marathon in some of these big cities. So a statistic that I read was, and this blows my mind, that 50 or 60% of all of them cats running a marathon, at some point in time in that race, they think, "Oh my God, am I going to be able to finish this, or is this something that I'm going to be able to do?" 50 to 60% have thoughts that, "Am I going to be able to finish this?" And it is just through pure grit that they finish. But it's called the 40% rule. You're gonna get 40% through something, and then here's gonna come the doubts, or whatever it is that you're gonna try to figure out what you can achieve. Here's another way to think of the 40% rule. When you get to the point where you get to the difficult spot, listen to me, I promise you, when you get to the point that it becomes difficult, you need to tell yourself, "I got 60% left in the tank." It is staggering what the human mind and the human body can do when it is put in that position. But you can't quit. I want to save that. I want to save that a little bit towards the end. The biggest thing, like I said earlier, is this Angela Duckworth. I want to keep giving her the credit. So she was trying to figure this out. She was serious, man. She went to like Harvard, Navy SEALs. She went to even like elementary schools, high schools, and she was trying to figure out, what is the common characteristic or trait. She used these huge computers to find out all these things about all these people, and she was trying to find the algorithm on what it is that made people successful, and it came down to grit. It came down to people's perseverance. It came down to unwavering perseverance and passion for a long-term goal. And here's another thing. Everybody has that notion of, you know what, man, I don't know if I can I can keep going. But I'm telling you, keep going, because everybody can. They asked me, I've done said this before in the podcast. Um, they asked Muhammad Ali, how many sit-ups do you do? He goes, "How many sit-ups do I do?" He goes, "Bro, I don't even start counting until they start hurting." So you're not even really rolling until you get to the difficult part. All of that other stuff was all that other that you experienced was the easy part, was the parts that you had for talent and the easy parts that you had for your characteristics. And now you're to the part that takes the grit. But that goes back to, and I want to make this analogy, but I don't want to, I use this analogy only to get a reference, because most people have experienced this. Love me some waiters and waitresses. I think everybody should have to wait tables in their lifetime, and I think everybody should work retail at Christmas. If you did, your ass would be nicer to people. But everybody's been in a restaurant where the waiter comes over and there's no effort, there's no enthusiasm, there's no execution. We've all seen it, right? So just look at that vision. Then you have another situation, same restaurant. Go in there, you got somebody that's enthusiastic. "So glad to see you guys today. You're going to be blown away by our specials." Then they execute. They get stuff on time. I call it the silent waiter, where they're starting to fill your waters before you even ask. All of that stuff, that comes from grit. That comes from you decided you want to do shit right. I mean, that's what it is, right? So, but I'm telling you, from managing people and being around for a long period of time, those things that sound so simple, like effort, enthusiasm, passion, intensity, all those things that sound, man, that is, Brad, man, this can't be that simple. Yep, it sure is. And I'm telling you, it'll make the difference. If it'll separate you from other people. The other thing that it does is it grit. See, I've said this before. The human mind can only think of one thing at a time. And so when you're talking about grit, a grit mindset is a growth mindset. And so when you have a grit mindset and a growth mindset, you don't see the obstacles, you don't see the potholes. All you see, it's the long-term goal that we were talking about. Believe it or not, you'd think, well, Brad, man, effort and energy and enthusiasm and grit, that takes a lot of energy. Yeah, it does. But you know what? It actually found that people with grit and a positive outlook to life actually live longer. So let me get this straight. You're having to exert more energy. You're having to have more enthusiasm. You're having to think about others than you more than you do yourself. And you're telling me I'm going to live longer? Yep, I damn sure am. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because all of that cultivates at the end of the night that you feel a joy. You feel that there has been success throughout the day. And then when you wake up the next morning, it gets easier and easier to go. Um, so the other thing is developing grit. Here's where you develop grit. You develop grit by those, and I'm guilty of this too. In my life, what's happened sometimes in my life, and I've caught myself doing it, is when things get to a difficult point, I'm like, I'm gonna go this over here and go another direction, thinking that I've, kind of outsmarted the world. And then no matter what it is I do, all of a sudden I look up and it could be a year later, could be 2 years later. That barrier comes back, that obstacle comes back in front of me. And so guess what? I got to face it then. So you can either face it now or you can face it then, but sooner or later you're going to have to face it. So when you get to that difficult time, the best thing for you to do is go, hey, it is what it is, man. This is something that's put in front of me that I need to overcome. I must overcome. I've said that all the time. The I don't believe that God makes bad things happen to me, but I do believe that God allows certain things to happen to me for me to go the direction that I need to be going, or for me to learn something. Let me tell you something. I hate to say it, but I'm going to be real with you. Uh, you learn more when you're in a difficult situation. As long as you don't get to the panic state, you will learn more in a difficult situation because you're going to go like, okay, how the hell did I get here? And what can I ever do to ensure that I don't get back in this situation? So sorry to say, my son told me that one time he was overheard me talking, and we didn't have that great of a month, and I was on my cell phone, and my son, he's probably 15, 16 at the time. He did Taekwondo. And he walks up to me and goes, Dad, Mr. Kong says that you learn more from a defeat than you do a victory. You know what I told him? Shut up and go upstairs. But if he was right, but I ain't going to tell him he's right, man. It ain't going to come out of my mouth. So developing grit and being intentional to develop grit. And that do the research, guys. I know I'm sitting here saying this and I'm like, man, this just seems so simple, but it is that simple. It is that simple. And it's like, I'll be real with you. So I kind of get into that situation where I start seeing the potholes. I say, okay, I see the potholes a week from now. I see a potholes 2 weeks from now. I see a pothole today. So what I'm doing is I'm already looking for the obstacles, right? And so when I do verbalize this sense of anxiety or this sense of fear or whatever you want to call it with my wife, you know what she says? She reminds me of the 3 or 4 things either I did or God did the last time we hit that deal. So what you got to come down to is the reason this is so important to focus on the grit, focus on the passion, focus on intensity, focus on all these things that I'm talking to you guys about is because sooner or later, I'm telling you, the storm's going to come and it will prepare you for when the storm comes. Um, the couple things, and I'm gonna wrap this deal up, and I've got some wrote notes here towards the end of this deal, but this is one of the most critical characteristics. So what I'm talking about too is I'm encouraging long-term success because I personally don't feel like we were made to live on the mountaintop. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that everything in life goes everything the way it's perfectly supposed to be. But you know what? I'll tell you this from a person that's been in the valley a bunch of times. We weren't meant to live in the valley either. So what success and grit will help you to do is it will help you to level all that out. It'll help you to level the mountaintops out. It'll help you to level the valleys out, and it'll cause your life to have this smooth plane. For almost envision it like a race car. How a race car is able to go faster on a level playing field. So let me give you 5 things that I came up with that just to recap this deal. Grit is an unstoppable an unstoppable force of perseverance and passion for long-term success. What separates those from who thrive and who give up and the people who don't is grit. Don't take this like negative, but I've said this before. There was a book I read on Napoleon Hill, and what he did at the turn of the century, he went and interviewed hundreds of very successful people. And you know what? The number one thing that successful people had was they had vision, set goals, and they had belief. So, I mean, he talked to Vanderbilt, he talked to Getty, he talked to all those people at the turn of the century that were uber successful. And not to be negative, but he also went and talked to people that were struggling or talked to people that weren't doing that well. And you know what? The two things that the majority of unsuccessful people did, or characteristics that they shouldn't have done, they procrastinated and they quit. Procrastination and quit. That's how simple it is. Don't if it's laid on your heart, you need to go do it, or you need to do it. Get up, do that, do the things you hate the most the first thing in the day. And then the other thing is don't quit. I cannot tell you how many stories where people were this close to achieving their ultimate goals and just quit 1-2 days too early. So but now go back to the other deal, is how in intensity and passion and execution, effort, and enthusiasm. I mean, doesn't it sound? It just sounds so simple, but it is that simple. You know, I say that all the time. I say that about sales. I say that about parenting. I say that about being friends with other people. You know who makes it hard? We do. And if you just keep it to the things, and the majority of this comes from a mindset. The majority of everything you see, that, in my opinion, everything that you see that materializes in the physical realm somewhere happened in your mental space. And so this is what I'm telling you, to take these things, listen to these things in the morning, start these things before the obstacles get there. Start these things before the enemy starts to attack you. It empowers you to overcome setbacks. Grit overcomes setbacks. You realize that I made 10 steps forward. Yeah, I went 2 steps back, but I'm still 8 steps to the positive. So grit empowers you to overcome setbacks. You develop resilience. You develop, it unlocks potential, achieves extraordinary results. No matter the obstacle, I'll go back to this again. No matter the obstacle, think about this. When you hit an obstacle, Brad said, effort, execution, intensity. Those are the things that will help you not run, not fear, not doubt, not anxiety. Then the very thing about grit too is embrace this. Like I started out with this deal, everybody has a different talent set. In my opinion, everybody has different IQs. Everybody has different parents, DNA. But to me, this is something that is kind of reassuring and encouraging to me, is that shit has very little to do with your quality of life. To me, and then you know what else too? That the hard work, that, yeah, talent, yeah, those are great. But I'm telling you, when you're telling me that the number one determining factor after studying thousands and thousands of people was the thing that was decided or came upon that was a differentiating factor was grit. That is encouraging to me, because anybody can develop it, anybody can have it. It's just a choice. So go choose to do it, guys. Have a great day. Be real.